Blood-red letters filled the top of the news page on the monitor screen. Serial killer victim identified. Each time Sara Mason went online to read and learn about the Sacramento River Delta, the hometown area she never had a chance to know, her homepage featured headlines about the elusive psychopath. She read the internet posts with concern and remembered the fear caused by the Zodiac killer of the 1960s and 1970s. Like with the Zodiac, authorities had no direct clues as to who the killer might be. Reading the updates always set her nerves on edge. Just after moving into her home, she thought she had heard someone walking around her property late at night, but could never find a trace of anyone being there. Was she imagining things? The news went on to disclose. The graves of 2 unidentified skeletons did not contain an ID or personal belongings, as was the case with previous burial sites found. Cat bones buried in the graves were the tie-in with previous victims, all found with bones of a small animal. "A cat," Sara said out loud. Then an intrusive old image came to mind. A pink dress and a small furry bunny. Cold case detectives identified one of the 2 sets of remains as that of Paula Rowe, a convenience store night clerk from Sacramento. She had been missing 12 years. Previous reports indicated the victims were placed in the ground with the belongings they had at the time. The killer dug the graves in remote areas near rivers and streams where the ground was soft and damp, promoting decay. A police profiler indicated the perpetrator presumably lived within the crescent-shaped area where the graves were placed. Remains were found beyond Interstate 80 to the west, Roseville to the north, and east of Rancho Cordova along the American River. Within the crescent extends the entire Sacramento metropolitan area and suburb towns. Most of the victims had been missing for years, some for decades. Considering the graves discovered in recent times did not contain fresh skeletons, it is assumed the killer either left the area or simply quit killing, which law enforcement believed to be unlikely. Now and then, a new name is added to the growing list of missing people, the killer still unknown. One last item in the internet article disclosed: since victims are both male and female and of differing races, it is difficult to determine a possible motive, except that authorities have an elusive madman on their hands. If she was not careful, Sara's imagination could get out of hand. The break-ins were increasing in the barrio where she lived in Puerto Rico for the last 3 decades. This left her looking over her shoulder, and the need to find a safe place to live life grew heavier. Some communities on the island were simply too dangerous, and her neighborhood had become one of them. She needed a place where she felt secure, but never guessed she would find herself clear across the country. Once deciding to return to live in her hometown area, her first major decision was to look for a house along the river, but not confined to Rio Vista in Solana County, where she attended high school. Many people moved into the Delta and built multi-million-dollar mansions along the river. That was not for her. She slipped into town before Christmas a few months earlier and bought an older house, a present to herself. Wanting to own a Victorian mansion was a lifelong dream that never faded. She found one such place, and to the astonishment of the real estate broker, immediately signed the sales agreement for the full asking price. Upon approval of her offer, she paid cash by way of a wire transfer. After signing the documents, she overheard the hotshot Sacramento real estate broker boast to someone in another office. Some wealthy middle-aged blonde woman, a real looker out of Puerto Rico, just bought that damnable eyesore down along the river. Sara wasn't offended and smiled secretly. She knew she held her age well and knew exactly how she would refurbish the old mansion.